think we are live, yeah?
Yes. You can start, guys.
Hi, everyone. Hello, my name is Manpreet Kaur, and today I'm back with a live session. We'll be discussing a lot of things today, especially a lot of international students have concerns with respect to their employment opportunities when they first come to Australia. So today we'll be discussing about the courses that can increase or has the opportunity to have more employment opportunities in the coming future. With me, I have Tejas Patel, who will be giving us a lot of information with respect to the courses that you should be choosing, which has a better employment opportunity. And at the same time, he'll be also explaining more in detail about why you should opt out for those courses, why you should opt out for those sectors. Thank you so much, Tejas, for joining us today. Could you just quickly start off by telling our audience why is it important for you to choose the courses that has higher employment opportunities?
Hi, everyone. This is Tejas here from Aussizz Group in Adelaide. I'm one of the registered migration agent here in Adelaide, South Australia. So if you have any questions regarding your career or visas, obviously you're more than welcome to post it on our Facebook Live session, and we'll be happy to help you out as in answer that questions. In regards to the Manpreet, your question about why they should be choosing, obviously you have answered yourself that because those sectors has higher employment opportunities, obviously that's why they should be choosing those courses. But not just that, obviously those sectors will be also very much aligned with the migration program, what immigration or what the government will be looking at as well. Because obviously when we talk about migration, they also want to make sure that the people who are applying for the permanent residency, they're employed as well. And they are paying the taxes, they become a migrant who are working full-time to make sure that they're helping the economy as well, because the migration is all about the economy as in job market. What are the jobs out there, how it's going to help them to achieve those job market requirements, just to fill in that gap as well. Because if you look at normally how they look at as in job statistics is, depending on how many jobs are advertised on different job portals, they decide their migration program according to that. They look at all the statistics. Obviously, ABS, the Australian Bureau of Statistics, look at all the data about the job availability, as well as they consult all the industry big bodies to see which are the occupation where employers find it hard to recruit the people in those roles, and then they decide the skill occupation list or supplementary skill occupation list according to that. So it's very much important to make sure that you do understand the job trend aligned with the current COVID environment or future as well.
Thank you so much, Tejas, for answering that. Just in line to this question, can you just list some courses that you believe has a high employment opportunity as of the moment that you could advise our student?
Look, everyone knows that obviously during this COVID time, the higher employment rate would be obviously in the health and community sector. But you can also look at the logistics sector as well. They're also booming. You can also look at the IT sectors. Some of the IT companies obviously hiring a lot of staff because they are increasing their presence through either work from home or different products they're launching as well for people to work more flexibility with flexibility as well. And also the engineering occupations, because even the government wants to focus on manufacturing in Australia. So they are promoting a lot of employers to set up their manufacturing base in Australia. So there will be more jobs coming up as well. Solar energy is one of the key areas in South Australia as well. A lot of big projects have been approved recently in regional South Australia. If you talk about just South Australia, but there will be a lot of jobs in engineering, a lot of jobs in manufacturing industry itself as well. So there will be obviously demand for engineering, health, IT, community sector management. Even if we talk about trade occupations, there will be always demand in trade as well, even though you might not see the trade occupations being in the critical sector, but there's always a shortage in some of the key sectors, such as hospitality as in cook or chef, or even carpentry or electricians in some of the areas. So you might see a lot of jobs advertised in certain pockets of the country where there is genuinely shortage. So it really depends on how they look at the overall jobs advertised in the market. what the students should be looking at is obviously job prospect, as in national, not just in their particular city or state, and see what how they can tap in those market, how they can achieve those job for them or for the friends and family.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tejas. During this live session, guys, if you come across with any question with respect to the what courses you should be choosing, which has higher employment rate, or how you should plan on your journey in Australia, making sure that after finishing your course, you should be employed somewhere and you'll be able to remunerate your journey so far. I do have one question coming from Mr. Manu asking that what are the course options for overseas nurses to be registered nurse in Australia, but with 6.5 band in IELTS?
I think as far as I know, Manu, APRA requires 7 each for registration in Australia. So unless and until you have the qualification from English-speaking countries, you would require that 7 in each module of IELTS if we talk about registration as a registered nurse in Australia.
Yeah, there's another question coming in, Tejas, by Ranjit Kaur. She's asking that what kind of courses we should opt out if someone has finished bachelor's in health science, making sure that they'll have a better employment opportunity.
Look, Bachelor of Health Science obviously is a broader field where you can eventually decide to do a specialization either in, you can go towards nursing, you can go towards medical science. One of the very good option is obviously Master of Laboratory Medicine as well, where they can be a laboratory medicine scientist or technician. Both occupations are in the state nomination as well as MLTSSL, so they can look for the visa options through that pathway as well. Or they can look at the other courses which are related to health science, as in either community sector management or social work or anything related to that as well. So it really depends on your area of interest. So you have to make sure that when you choose a course, it's just not about maybe the future pathway of the visa. It's also about, are you really interested in that course or not? So you have to make sure that you're investing your 3 years of time or 2 years of time during your master's or bachelor's. You're going to invest nearly $100,000 for your studies. Then you have to make sure that you are doing everything you can to check that these courses are suitable for you, and you're going to create a career in that. You don't want to just purely choose something which can be useful for your visas, because if you look at the overall trend in last 12 months, you can only achieve the visa outcome if you have an employment. You're going to only get the employment if you're going to love about what you're studying. So it's indirectly connected, as in what's your interest in that area. So if you're just going to say, okay, let's just do Master of Nursing or Bachelor of Nursing and we're going to get PR, it's not that easy anymore. You have to get a job. You have to have 3 months or 12 months or 6 months of job in any of the states, or you might need high points, so if you don't have a job, you're not going to get the state nomination. How are you going to get the job? If you're not interested in that area to work, it's not going to be easy, right? So you have to make sure that you know what you're doing. You are choosing the course which is suitable for yourself, and then you decide that, okay, this is the right course for me.
That actually makes sense, Tejas, because we have seen a lot of trend with the student asking us, because I work as an education counselor, so do see a lot of people coming and asking me, suggest me courses which leads to PR. We want direct PR. We want an option which has direct PR. What do you think that? Why does student have such a mindset? Why is it important for you to focus more on having a course which can help you in getting employed and later permanent residency than just focusing more on getting something which has direct PR option, like 189 option in general? I mean,
look, it's not that easy anymore as we might think that getting a permanent residency in Australia. Obviously, it's much harder. Everyone knows that it's getting more and more harder day by day, right? When you look at your friends or family who might have come around 10 years ago or 15 years ago, situation would have been different. They would have got the PR with 60 points or 120 points, depending on the point table system, or they might have applied directly without even any point system before 2006. That was a different situation. There were not many students back in those days. There were not many applicants who were really keen on applying for Australian skilled migration or different visa programs. If you look at the global scale, obviously, Australia and Canada are the 2 countries which are heavily promoting the migration all over the world. And both of the countries are doing very well in their own area, and they're very favorite, as in terms of international migrants wants to move into these two countries. So you're looking at the pool of applicants is quite big. Just in Australia would be more than 500,000 students who are studying in Australia. A lot of applicants, close to 100,000 temporary visa holders, such as 482, 457 visa holders, or working holiday visa holders, or student dependent visa holders, working full-time in their area of studies as well. And then you have a lot of people applying from offshore. So if you look at the overall pool, it's quite big. So it's not hard for any occupation to be very competitive. So if you look at the skill migration and employer sponsored altogether, you're looking at maximum 100,000 allocations each year. And you have competition of close to more than 1 million applicants every year, just because there are a lot of students in Australia, a lot of offshore applicants as well. So one space, you're competing with 10 other people as well. And that is in every category, as in employer sponsored, skill migration, regional migration, and everything. And if you talk about just skill migration, then it goes much higher, because your competition is quite higher. You have a lot of people applying for that small amount of allocations. So that's why it's getting harder and harder. And that's why most of the states are moving towards employment-based outcomes. So if you look at the recent or the current trend of the state nomination 190491, most of the states only offering the state nomination to someone who is already employed in the area of studies or the occupation. So if you're not focusing on getting a job, you might not end up having a permanent residency. It's going to be as simple as that. So that's why it's more important now than ever to make sure that you're only choosing those things, or you are doing what it's more easier for you to get into the job. And your focus is to create a career out of that. So you are doing two things. Obviously, you are achieving your permanent residency or your visa, and you're also creating yourself a proper career. Basically, that's what your end goal should be.
That is absolutely true, Tejas. We have some questions coming in from some of the people. There's one person named Rishi who asked two questions actually. One is, what is the future of light vehicle mechanic looks like in coming 2 years? And he also have a question that he has a partner who's overseas doing physiotherapy. Can she come here and be a registered nurse? So
Rishi's first question, obviously, being a vehicle motor mechanic or light vehicle mechanic. Obviously, the future will be always there. Even if you move from petrol, diesel car to electric car, you'll still need a mechanic to fix those cars. Matter of skill shortages. Again, as I said earlier, there are different patches in different area of the country. You might not really need a lot of mechanics in Melbourne and Sydney, but if you look at the regional smaller towns, you might need a lot of people because they might have a genuine shortage. A lot of employers in smaller towns here in South Australia do require people to stay there. It just because of the weather and overall condition, not many actually wants to stay over for longer time and stuff. But there is a genuine shortage in some of the remote areas, smaller towns. So saying in general, yes, there will be always a future of the trade. It's not going to be like 1 year they will say yes, next year they will say no. You need a consistent supply of them, motor mechanics for employers to make sure that they have enough pool of the talent to choose from. Because migration is also about making sure that you're creating a pool of applicants for the employers to choose from. So if there is one job, you should have at least 2, 3, 4 applicant who can actually apply for that one job, so they can give a flexibility to the employer to choose who is the right employee for that particular business. So you'll have motor mechanic as a long term, and that's why it's in the long term list. In terms of your partner to be a physio and come here to do registration as a registered nurse, obviously she can come over to do masters here if she wants to do masters by nursing, clinical nursing, and she can register here as a registered nurse. That can be done. Or also she can do the physio examination and get herself registered as a physiotherapist, and then apply for the state nomination or different visas if she's having a bit of experience.
Yeah, thank you, Tejas. So as you've mentioned that some of the states has a lot of shortage of skilled people, and many states are encouraging people to apply for the state nomination visas. We've seen that trend. But we know that IT, nursing, social work, trade, all those are very, very popular courses. Which sector do you think has not been touched so much? And we can see that in next 5 years, that particular sector will be booming a lot, and students should actually think of getting into those kinds of courses which are aligned to that sector.
There's still, if you look at the strategies in last 6 months from Department of Home Affairs point of view, they're heavily focused on the global talent visas. Global talent includes a lot of key sectors such as advanced manufacturing, IT sectors, a lot of other sectors as in aviation and a few other things. So obviously, those sectors are designed according to the future requirements for any economy, especially Australia, if we talk about Australian economy. So they are obviously focusing on those sectors, keeping in next 20 years, 30 years mind that, okay, this is what we're gonna require in next 5 years or 10 years or 20 years as in advanced manufacturing. So it is robotics or artificial intelligence as well. So if you look at IT sector as well, even though a lot of students are doing IT, but we have to understand that out of 10 graduates, how many actually do try to get into the IT sector after graduation? Not many, because a lot of them are already actually in their comfort zone. They're already working as a personal carer, they're already working in different sectors. They think, okay, not many company wants to hire them and stuff, but there is always a way. We have seen both sides of the stories. I've seen graduates from professional program do get a job, but obviously the percentage are much lower. But there are still people who never make any efforts to get those jobs as well. They never have a professional resume made. They never have a proper LinkedIn profile as well. They never try to do marketing their own profile as a network, their own profile. That's the point. You haven't been to ACS networking events and stuff as well. So coming back to your question, overall IT is still, obviously there are a lot of graduates, but it still does have a lot of potential as in to grow as well, either into, as I said, security as a specialist, ICT security specialist area, or artificial intelligence area, software engineering area as well. And then also the nursing and the community sector management. Even though we have a lot of students studying nursing, but there will be still a demand of all nurses in the future as well, because Australia is getting older. A lot of people are getting aged, so you'll require more nurses to look after them. You'll require more community sector people. You'll require more social workers to make sure that the health system are working fine as well. So these sectors, even though there are people studying in there, but unfortunately the reality is not more than 50% actually work in those sectors as well. So I think there is a gap in between. So what students needs to make sure, and obviously the authorities need to work towards it, is how to bridge that gap, how to make sure that the graduates are being utilized properly to fill that genuine skill shortage. My answer to your question is health, IT. That's two core sectors which you can still rely on. It will be there always.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tejas. We understand, audience, that you have a lot of questions. If during this session we miss out to answer your question, we'll definitely get back to you. You can also leave your contact details in the message box so that we can book an appointment with the migration agent and they'll assist you with your questions. We are bombarding with a lot of questions. I'm just going to come back to another question, which is from Sunil Gautam, saying that what will be the best option to get PR for somebody who's dentist overseas? Should they go for the council registration, or should they come here on study visa?
Look, as of now, I think the offshore migration is pretty tough. As far as dentists is concerned, I think it's in the regional occupation list, ROL. So that only makes them to apply, eligible to apply for either 491 or 494 visa, which is a regional employer sponsored. Now, before they can apply, obviously they have to clear up the ADC as well. So it might be difficult for them to do that while being offshore. So it could be a better idea for them to come here to do masters in either public health or something else, and then they work towards getting the ADC clear and get the employer sponsored or apply for 491 visa.
Thank you, Tejas. There's another question coming in from Tejas Patel. She's saying that I'm in Melbourne and now I have skill assessment engineering technologist with 70 point and 10 months left for my TR. Which stage should I good to move at this stage?
Shraddha, as I said earlier, the majority of the states obviously focus on employment outcomes. So even if you decide to move any state, you have to make sure that you have a job there. As far as job is there, then obviously South Australia is still good. Northern Territory is good. You can also move to Tasmania. All these 3 states are good. You can also stay in Victoria itself and try to apply into the next round, where you'll have to demonstrate that your current employment is in line with the economical recovery of the Victorian economy around COVID-19. And there is a good chance for you to get the 491. What we have seen in regional Victoria is obviously even accountants got invited as well this month for 491 in regional Victoria, as far as they can demonstrate that they are working in those sectors. So pretty much you can say that Victoria will be happy to invite any kind of occupations, as long as you can demonstrate your efforts towards economical recovery for Victorian economy after the COVID-19 hit. So you can assess those options. If you need more information, I think you can go and speak to one of our migration agent in Melbourne, and they can give you a guidance according to your profile in detail.
Thank you so much, Tejas. So we've discussed about various sectors in general, employment opportunity, approach that an international student opt out when they plan out to come here, making sure that they are using the resources appropriately. Like you said earlier, having a LinkedIn profile, telling the market, attending the networking event, and all those stuff. Now that students have an idea what they should be doing, there's a student who also asked this question about childhood teaching. Do you think the teaching sector will boom up and students should also move towards teaching as well in future? Because there are a lot of overseas teachers who comes here and then they are kind of lost in the process of becoming teacher in Australia. So do you think that's also one promising area you should be looking at?
Look, if you're good in English and you can manage to get good score in required exam for registration as a teacher, you can definitely focus on teaching area. But you have to keep in mind that where you're looking at basically in terms of your state nomination or visa options. You have to be flexible around where you can move and where you can work, basically. So as long as you can move to a regional area, there will be always a chance, there will be always an opportunities for teachers, or even either it could be early childhood or it could be primary or whatever level of the teaching you're talking about. But if you are very firm that, okay, you don't want to move out of the metro cities or anything like that, then it can be an issue in terms of achieving those residency options. Because as I said earlier, migration is all about job pool, as in economical requirements for that particular state economy. So if, let's say, if you talk about Melbourne, a student might have done Master of Teaching in Melbourne, and if they don't want to move anywhere, then the only option they might have is 189. If 189 doesn't work, then it's not going to work out, because Victoria is not sponsoring the teaching occupation in the state nomination list, because there are already enough teachers in Victorian market, as in job market. They might not need to sponsor someone from overseas or someone who is on temporary visas. So, but at the same time, if you are happy to move to Alice Spring or somewhere else, let's say a smaller town, so a smaller city, and you get a job there, it's easier for them to sponsor, because they need more people to move in those towns. They need the population growth. They also need that skilled migrants to move into the area as well. So you have to be open in those and keep looking for your options.
Yes, that actually makes sense. Thank you so much, Tejas, for answering so many questions. We are getting a lot of questions from a lot of people. We'll try to answer all. There is one question coming from Panu Sapkota. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. He or she is asking, do you suggest doing Bachelor of Nursing from Ballarat or any other state like Tasmania, Darwin, or even Melbourne would be better at this stage?
Look, if we talk about nursing, obviously anywhere is fine as long as the occupation's in the state nomination list, but I'll still prioritize either South Australia or Tasmania or Northern Territory, because there are still more options there. There's always the state nomination list will always have this registered nurses in their list, because they always need that good amount of pool of registered nurses for their employers in those states. out of all these 3 states in particular, I'll pick Northern Territory. So if you have an option to study in Darwin, go for it.
That's good. I hope that answers your question, Mr. Sapkota. There's a similar question to that. Somebody has wrote that, how about NT for permanent residency in nursing? So you reckon that's a good idea to go to NT to study nursing?
Yeah, absolutely. So they should be studying, and they can always look for a job option. As I said, as long as their occupation is in the occupation list and you end up getting employment at least 20 hours a week, most of the states will be happy to sponsor. Keep in mind, different state will have a different requirement. Obviously, Queensland, some of the program requires 35 plus hours as in full-time job, but mostly 20 hours a week is okay.
There's one more question coming from Mr. Dilip Patel asking that, how about 491 family stream for network professionals or ICT security specialist? What is the chance of getting invited?
Unfortunately, at this point of time, they haven't been inviting the family sponsored for any of the occupation except mostly the medical occupations. There was very small round happen in January for 189 and 491 related sponsored applicants, and most of them have been medical occupations. We are still waiting for the final result from Department of Home Affairs, but as far as our internal data concerned, we haven't received any invite for IT occupations for 491 related sponsored.
I hope that answers your question, Mr. Dilip. So Tejas, you've been working for a while. You've seen a lot of ups and downs in the market and a lot of changes in migration over the period of time. What do you think students should do? What is your advice to everybody when it comes to choosing what you should be doing in Australia when it comes to coming here as a student? What should be the right approach? Overall, if you have to sum up everything, you definitely mentioned a lot of things, but what's your advice to everybody?
Look, when we talk about migration is long process for most of the applicants. But when it comes to choosing the right course or doing the right thing, I'm sure most of the students are doing the right thing. But you have to keep in mind, you do not jump different courses frequently. You have to stick with what you're doing. What I've seen in my life, as in professional life, is basically migration is a round cycle, basically. So even if they might have removed some of the occupation this year, it might come back in a couple of years because there will be always a shortage in those areas. Keep in mind, if the occupation was on the list, then it means there was a shortage sometime. And if it gets out of the list, obviously people will move away from those occupations, and then eventually it might bring up the competition again in that occupation. If I give you example with latest occupation, that's an accounting, it's very hot, right? Nearly 2 years, I think I haven't seen any invite for 189 from pretty much May 2019. They haven't invited any accountants. But what do you think after 2-3 years for accountants, when there will be no one accounting, as in not many students who are studying accounting? In that case, the competition might, the chances might come back for accountants, because most of the EYs will be expired. Most of the students would have changed their occupations as well. Not many students who are studying accounting as well. So in that case, there is a chance that it might come back, as in the point will go down. So keep in mind, this can happen with any occupations. It really depends on how overall the occupation list gets announced every year. Even if you look at the trade occupations, after I think 2009-11, around 9 or 10, they've removed most of the trade occupations from the list. After 2 years, they've really faced that there is a genuinely shortage in a lot of trade occupations, so they bring back most of the in the list again. And then right now we are seeing a lot of trades like motor mechanic or chef and cook are being on top of the list, where a lot of people are studying those areas, and they think they might take that off as well. But even if that happens for 6 months, 12 months, or 1 year or 2 years, there's a high chance it might come back in a couple of years' time. So what you have to basically do is obviously you stick to your core area. First of all, you choose what you really love to do, as in you really want to be a chef or you really want to be accountant. Focus on that. Stick to that career option. And then in terms of the visa, obviously, especially plan to study in a regional area because we'll have longer regional, as in graduate visas, 3 years or 4 years. So during these 3 years, try to build up your experience because migration will be always about employment outcomes in the future, just like right now. So because the competition will go up, obviously they will need the people who are already working in the area of the studies. So you have to choose the right course, try to study in regional, and then try to get into in those areas where you have studied. Basically, as long as you're doing these two things, then you have to just basically plan according to the state nomination or the federal department's plan announcements. As far as I've seen last 10 years or 15 years track record, most of the time you'll be fine. It's just that you cannot jump around too frequently, because I've seen IT students from especially the business analyst area now jumping into nursing area. It can happen that in 1 year there will be a lot of nurses and immigration might pull the plug and say, okay, look, at this year we're not going to sponsor a lot of nurses, but that will be just for 1 year. Maybe there's a chance after a year or two they might bring back the aggressive nursing planning, because you need a big pool of applicants for employers as well. But you have to make sure that you not jump frequently. You have to keep to your occupation and try your best in terms of getting your visa sorted in that occupation itself. I've seen, especially, let's say, I give you example for Immigration South Australia. They invited a lot of accountants yesterday. We had these applications pending from March last year. So we launched in January, February, March 2020. All these applicants were frequently asking us, should we do nursing? Should we do something else? The only answer I was giving is basically just wait. Your application is not refused. If they wanted to refuse it, they would have done it a while back. They would have taken this occupation off, but they didn't do that because they wanted you to support. But the situation was different. The COVID was there. A lot of things changed. There was different circumstances for everyone, right? But finally, we end up getting, I think, 9 or 10 pending applications cleared up yesterday. Most of them got 190 for accountants. A lot of people might not even believe that, because New South Wales, Western Australia already removed accounting from their occupations. But South Australia actually ended up inviting those applicants who applied last year before March. So just giving this example to give you that as in the live example, that as long as you work towards your occupation, you'll end up getting that what you ask, what you have basically worked for.
That is actually true, Tejas. Thank you so much. I think you've given a very valuable advice to a lot of international students that will at least make them think and at least plan how they can come here and make sure that they are not end up switching their career again and again, because it's such a trend. I've definitely noticed myself as well. It's amazing to see somebody having such a good career back home and coming here and studying something completely different and jumping different career because of lack of understanding of the Australian market and understanding the need of employment or the need of employment for the immigrants. We do know Australia is very, very much welcoming towards international students to come here and obviously study. They give you employment opportunity by offering you 20 hours per week, but we end up not really choosing the professional areas, but work more towards the casual employment, just to gain money, just to earn money. But if this is the time you can utilize making sure that you choose the right approach and right course in order to get the employment at the end of the course, I believe a lot of international students will not face what they're facing right now, even if it is COVID or even if it is any other natural or any other calamity. So hopefully in all the students who have listened to this session, they got answers to a lot of questions that they have. I'm sure you still have a lot of questions to ask. You can drop your comments, you can drop your details. We are more than happy to help you. We are available in all different channels. We can have a phone consultation, virtual consultation, no matter which part of the world you're sitting. We are there to help you, assist you, and help you out with all your questions and journey in Australia. We wish everybody all the best. Thank you so much, Tejas, for joining me. And I hope everyone enjoyed this session. Thank you so much.